Today is an anniversary. 10 years ago, boy, time rushes by when you're going broke and sinking into poverty and your empire's falling apart. 10 years ago today, that Bush signed what has come to be known as the Bush tax cuts. Remember that? What were you doing 10 years ago today? Huh? This day in 2001, he passed the second round in 2003. And I don't know, do you remember what he said when he did this? He promised that the tax cuts would bring prosperity and growth. Jesus Christ. How's that prosperity and growth thing working out for you, America? Remember what he said? Do you remember that? Do you remember this? Clinton, for all his faults, handed Bush budget surpluses as far as the eye could see, and the national debt disappearing in the same 10-year period. What was it back then? A couple of trillion, 3 trillion? Doesn't matter. It's just zeros after a number. It doesn't mean a damn thing. But Bush and Cheney and the Bush crime family, and you remember somebody made the comment about now the adults are going to be in charge? I'll be damned. I'll be damned. 10 years ago, prosperity and growth. Woo! Are we doing great? Huh? Of course, it was Clinton that let the dogs out when he signed the end of Glass-Steagall and allowed the banking bastards, the real thieves, the people who really should be put up against the wall in this country. And what then, Mike? Shot? No, pantsed. They should be put up against a wall in Lower Manhattan on Wall Street and pantsed. But it was Clinton that let the dogs out, those dogs, so they could rip this country into shreds. And by Jesus, it only took them about 10 years to destroy everything from about 1997 till about 2007. That's all it took for the banksters, the real filthy bastards, to destroy everything. Take a look around. How's it look? How's it feel? For so many of us in what used to be called the middle class, lower part of it, but the middle class nonetheless, for so many of us, that jive-ass turkey American dream is no longer operative. I defy you, if you are in what remains of the middle class, or the former middle class, I defy you, and this is kind of sad, I'm not trying to be a bastard here, because I don't know how I'm going to tell my 7-year-old this either, but sit down and tell your child, listen, work hard, go to school, be a good person, and you'll get ahead, because this is America. Huh? Doesn't that sound phony now? Oh, I know a lot of parents are still telling their kids that fantasy, but you know, unless you can get them into Princeton, if you can get them into Princeton or Yale or Harvard or University of Pennsylvania, or, you know, one of the Ivy League schools or whatever, or get the little darlings into law school, you got $40,000, $50,000 a year to send them to a prestigious law school. You can't send them to John Marshall Law School. I don't think that even exists anymore. Does John Marshall still exist, Kathy? Oh, it does still exist? That's night school. That's all night school? They're right here in Atlanta? Oh, okay. How's that prosperity and growth thing working, America? Every day, the news is worse. Home foreclosures at an all-time high. Unemployed people for extended periods of time, worse than the Depression. All because Clinton let the dogs out, and George Bush and Dick Cheney engineered the most massive transfer of wealth in the history of this country. From the middle and working classes to the rich. So when you hear Republicans talking about, well, these Democrats want to transfer wealth. It's communism, socialism. They want to take from the rich. That's what they want to do. How do you listen to that, Mr. or Ms. Republican, without peeing your drawers from laughing so hard that some Republican politician would stare you in the face and tell you that? When the proof, all you need to know about wealth transfer in this country is to take a look at the last 10 years, and I don't care where you look. Any aspect of this economy, pick one you're familiar with. Anything. Healthcare, manufacturing, pick something. The cost of the Bush tax cuts, estimated by the Citizens for Tax Justice, roughly $2.5 trillion through 2010. And Think Progress put together a little thing here using data on various social spending projects from the National Priorities Project, which does these calculations for the cost of the wars that Bush got us into in Iraq and Afghanistan. And the National Priorities Project has estimated 10 other possible policies we could have paid for the same $2.5 trillion price tag of the Bush tax cuts. All of that money, all of it ultimately went to the wealthy. The uber wealthy, because, somebody, well, Mike, that, the middle class got tax cuts too. Yeah, what'd they do with it? What'd they do with the tax cuts? Put a few bucks together and bought a great big old house because the mortgage industry lied to them? And see how easy it was? You want to buy a house? Pfft, no problem. How much you got down? Nothing. Well, I got $100. Okay. We have a beautiful $750,000 house out here for you. But all I have is $100. No problem. How about we give you an interest-only loan? Don't worry about it. So what did America do with those tax cuts? Because our leaders lied to us about prosperity and growth. What did we do with it? We spent it. Why not spend it? When Clinton left office, even though we didn't realize that he had loosed the dogs of hell on us with the end of Glass-Steagall, we didn't know that at the time. We just knew that, damn, Bill Clinton, I don't care if he wants to diddle around with all the interns. I don't care. Look at this. Son of a bitch, look at my stock portfolio. Woohoo! Oh, but the hammer, the blade was being slowly pulled up the guillotine. And America had its neck right at the bottom. Nobody paid attention. And then Bush comes along and said, tell you what we're going to do. We're going to cut everybody's taxes. Son of a bitch. Do you remember 2002 and 3 and 4 and 5 and 6? Do you remember? You couldn't find a high school graduate who was going to go into science or engineering or any of the applied sciences. They were all going to go to work on Wall Street because, man, did you hear about so-and-so? A year out of college and he's making $300,000 a year. Woo! 10-year anniversary of the Bush tax cuts of 2001. He passed the second round in 2003, but it was the 2001 tax cuts that most economists took a look at and said, oh, my God, he's not really going to do that. And remember all the talk about, well, that had a sunset clause to it, so at the end of 10 years, which last year a decision had to be made, the tax cuts would run out. And, of course, this was a deliberate, typical right-wing neo-fascist trick, corporatist trick. Tell them it's going to run out in 10 years, and then when the 10 years is up, when they try to let it run out, start screaming tax increase. There's not a politician in America with the guts right now to say we need tax increases or America is dead meat. I don't mean tax increases on the working class, what's left of it. I mean tax increases, massive tax increases. After insisting that corporate America pay their goddamn share that these weasels have avoided effectively since Reagan took office. You owe us, you bastards. You owe the United States of America that has sent thousands of people to their graves, Americans and not Americans, so you capitalist bastards could continue to suck this economy dry. You owe the country. Of course, the capitalists, if there's one listening right now, I say, oh, who is this little prick? Who is this guy? And they're gone. It only happens accidentally. If they're flipping through the channels on XM or Sirius, you know, who is this guy? Well, what is this? What is this little twit? Who is this guy? I don't care. I'm just kidding. I don't care who he is. So, collect the corporate taxes that America has royally screwed us out of. And then change this tax code so that the first CEO that violates, I don't care who it is, that violates the new tax code goes immediately to prison. Immediately. Jesus Christ, in China, they take them out behind the factory and put a bullet in the back of their head. Not a bad idea. When you think how many people are screwed by these bankster bastards. But we are, of course, more civilized than the Chinese. So prison would be sufficient. Then, after all that's done, then notify the millionaires and billionaires, okay, your free ride is over too. Your tax rate, until we finally see black ink, is going to be 55%. Period. Don't scream. I don't care. Don't want to hear. La, 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 la. 55%. And listen to them squeal and scream. Did I mention this hour is sponsored by Roy and Paula? I don't think I did. The message, Mike and Kathy, keep up the good work. Thanks, Roy and Paula. Thank you, Paula. And Roy. 10 years. So what could have been done with the $2.5 trillion transfer of wealth from the working, the middle, the poor classes, too. Poor people have wealth. All of that transferred up into these filthy hands of the top 1%, top 2%, and especially the top 0.5%. Gluttonous, greedy bastards who, by the way, are going to die of cancer and strokes and heart disease just like you and I will die, but think that while they're here, they might as well screw everybody they can. I'm not talking about a Wiener type or a Clinton type. I'm just saying. Screw them all, the long, the short, and the tall. Right? So what could that $2.5 trillion have done in the past 10 years? I know you've heard these little lists before, and I know when usually when I read them, I just go, "Oh, Jesus Christ, really?" And then I just move on to something else. It really doesn't stick. But I'll tell you what, when we come back from this break, I'll just give you 5, 6, 7 examples of what it could have done. 10 years ago, prosperity and growth. Here, let me just sign these tax cuts here. Where do I sign, Dick? I don't know where to sign. Where do I sign? Do I sign over there? Okay. Do I sign George or just you? Okay. Okay. 10 years ago, Bush signed his tax cuts into law. $2.5 trillion. is how much was transferred from the poor, the working, the middle class, to the wealthy. $2.5 trillion. 2,500 billion. Here are 10 alternatives that could have been pursued instead of putting this money into the pockets of the wealthy. We could have given almost 123 million children health care every year for 10 years. We could have given 49 million people access to low-income health care every year for 10 years. We could have provided 43 million students with Pell Grants worth $5,500 every year for 10 years. We could have provided $31 million in Head Start slots for children every year for 10 years. We could have provided the Veterans Administration money for care for 30.7 million military veterans every year for 10 years. We could have provided 30 million scholarships for university students every year for 10 years. We could have hired 4 million firefighters every year for 10 years. We could have hired almost 4 million elementary school teachers every year for 10 years. We could have hired almost 4 million police officers every year for 10 years. We could have retrofitted 144 million households for wind power every year for 10 years. We could have retrofitted 54 million households for solar photovoltaic power every year for 10 years. So the trade-offs, as Think Progress points out, paints a stark picture. For the same price as the Bush tax cuts, which did nothing to help the economy, take a look around. Show me. Where's the help for from the Bush tax cuts? Where is it? For the same price as the Bush tax cuts, we could have sent tens of millions of students to college, retrofitted every household in America with the capacity to generate alternative energy, hired millions of firefighters and police officers, effectively ended our national shame of having kids who lack health care coverage. We could put millions more teachers into classrooms, but instead, oh no, the Bush tax cuts. And in 2010, Congress then went on to renew the Bush tax cuts for another additional 2 years. And the political will for the sort of public investments I just mentioned, gone. It's a pretty stark picture. What do you say to your kids, your nieces and nephews, your children, your grandkids? Now comes Tim Pawlenty, who wants to do 3 times the damage. He wants $8 trillion in tax cuts for the wealthy. What was the Bush thing? 2.3 trillion. Pawlenty wants to do 7.8 trillion. Minnesota Governor Tim Pawlenty's plan for the economy. Again, Think Progress. Pawlenty's plan is more radical than Paul Ryan's little attempt to destroy America. It costs 3 times more than the Bush tax cuts and still means a tax increase on the middle class. Pawlenty gave a speech, was this morning or yesterday in Chicago? I think it was this morning. Pawlenty's plan includes a hidden tax increase on the middle class. I'll get to that in a second. A massive personal income tax cut for millionaires and billionaires. Here we go again. When are we going to string these people up instead of giving them tax cuts? There's got to be a day. There has to be an end point. Are they going to take everything? A massive personal income tax cut for millionaires and billionaires. Citizens for Tax Justice estimates Pawlenty's plan cuts millionaires' taxes by at least 41%. Cuts them by 41%. A massive tax cut for corporations, including big oil, that would cut the corporate rate by more than 50%. But big oil doesn't pay taxes. They get tax allowances. So I guess those would go up by 50%. A complete elimination of the estate tax, capital gains tax, and tax on dividend income, which means that the wealthy never, ever would have to pay income tax again. Ever. Not ever. These sluggish, rancid bastards don't work for a living. They move paper. It's all capital gains. It's all estate tax, or it's all estate money. It's all inheritance money is what I'm trying to say. It's all stocks and bonds. It's all money manipulation. It's all dividend income. These rancid bastards don't work. They haven't worked for a living? Like what? Like what you do or used to do? A cap, I'm still talking about Pawlenty's plan. A cap on total spending that would necessitate severe cuts to Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, and other government programs, except for the weapons industry, for war, which Pawlenty has taken off the table in favor of slashing Social Security instead. Social Security, cut it, get rid of it. There are trillions in the Social Security Trust Fund that these greedy, rancid bastards can't wait to get their hands on. The price tag for all these tax cuts, more than triple the cost of the Bush tax cuts. $7.8 trillion over 10 years. In short, if you thought the Paul Ryan plan to end Medicare in order to pay for tax breaks for the wealthy and big oil didn't go far enough, then you'll love the Pawlenty plan. This is what this country has come to. This is the kind of vomit, of stinking, filthy vomit that runs for public office on the Republican side. You either have these people or you have morons like Sarah Palin or Michelle Bachmann or the Pepperoni Man. Palin, who will tell you to your face until her cockroaches run to Wikipedia and try to edit the page on Paul Revere to make it agree with Palin telling you that Paul Revere rode to warn the goddamn British. How do you explain to your child that this woman at one time was the Republican nominee to be Vice President of the United States? Jesus, God in heaven. Now, the way the New York Times offers what I just told you is this way. Tim Pawlenty, former governor of Minnesota, called on Tuesday for across-the-board federal spending reductions and large tax cuts for businesses and individuals, saying that such policies would drive rapid economic growth, create jobs, and reduce the federal debt. Declaring that President Obama's, quote, central planning, end quote, doesn't work, Mr. Pawlenty said that if he were elected president, he would aim for a national economic growth rate of 5%, a target he called a, quote, big positive goal, end quote, that is achievable. Central planning? Pawlenty says that Obama is involved in What? Another goddamn psychopath! Tim Pawlenty saying that Obama is a communist? And the bobbleheads out there? Yep, that's right. Yep. Not only is he a communist, but he's a Negro, too. And he's from Kenya. And he's a Muslim. Go, Tim, go! Go, Tim, go! Yes.